So I remember last year at the 2019 Boston Marathon, as we started getting to those later mile hills, as we were going up, I saw people pulled over, grabbing their quads, grabbing their hamstrings, hunched over, walking, just the look of pure defeat in their faces going up some of these hills. And I thought to myself, well, they definitely didn't get their hill training in. And to be honest, some of the hills in the Boston Marathon aren't really that big. But if you are not getting in your training early enough on and practicing for those later mile hills, they are really going to come in to haunt you. So don't worry, that's what I'm here for today, to get you up and over Heartbreak Hill and have you finishing Boston strong. So let's do a little course preview of the Boston Marathon for those of you who aren't super familiar with the course. Boston really sets you up for failure, as it gives you about 4 miles of pure downhill, which takes runners out a little too fast and really pounds on the quads. After that, it goes into a rolling section, and it's a little tricky to kind of find your pace because you're constantly going up and down. Then, once we get to about mile 16, the bigger hills start to come in and they start to get rollier and steeper. Then, once you're ready to hit that wall at mile 20 in a marathon, Heartbreak Hill comes in, just sitting just after mile 20. It's about a mile long, but luckily, once you get to the top, you have a couple miles of downhill, and the last 2 miles of the Boston Marathon are pure flat. We use the long run as a dress rehearsal for race day. So what better way than to prep for the Boston Marathon than actually planning some hills towards the end of your long run. This is just going to take a little extra planning on your part to make sure you are scoping out those hills and putting them towards the back end of that long run. This is just to practice running on tired legs and then having to actually finish after doing those hills, finishing the rest of your run. Now, if you are somewhere that doesn't really have any hills, I know there's got to be one somewhere. So get out there towards the end of that long run, head up and down it just a few times. I'm not saying you have to do some hill sprints in the middle of your long run, but some nice, slow, steady running just to get those legs moving uphill would be the best thing you can do. Now, in order to be good at hills, we got to do more hills. So during the long run is not going to be the only time that you are going to see hills during your Boston Marathon training. At least once a week, we're going to be alternating between short and speedy hill training and longer, slower hill training. So what this is going to look like for those shorter, faster intervals, you're going to be doing anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds up the hill. This is going to be somewhere in that 8 or 9 out of 10 effort range. So almost all out sprinting up these hills. You're going to be doing these about 6 to 8 reps. For these longer, slower hills, the pace is going to be obviously a little bit slower, but these should still feel difficult. We're going to be in that 7 out of 10 effort range going up these hills for 1 to 2 minutes. Now remember to pace yourself on these, because those 2-minute hills can start to get really long. And you're going to be doing actually more intervals here, somewhere in that 10 to 12 range. Now, for the recovery of both of these hills, I know you guys are going to ask. You're simply just going to walk back down the hill or a light jog. Big deep breaths there, shaking the arms out and getting ready to go back up the hill. Some things to think about anytime that you're running up a hill. We really want to focus on that form to make sure that we are staying nice and loose and relaxed in the upper body, but we're being powerful going up the hill. So we want to keep that gaze slightly upward. We don't want to drop that head. I know that tends to be what I want to do when I'm really trying to get into those hills. Keep those shoulders rolled back but nice and loose. Driving those elbows as far back as we can behind us to really help power. Keeping that chest nice and tall. Driving those hips forward, going up the hill, and pulling that leg out behind us. We want to be as strong and as powerful going up those hills as we can. Pro tip, now that you guys are super familiar with the Boston Marathon course, you know where all the hills are, you should be taking some fuel about a mile or so before those hills. This is going to give you that extra little boost to make sure that you're not crashing nutritionally going up the hill. Now, there's a lot more that goes into Boston Marathon training than what we talked about today. So if you want to see how I trained last year for the Boston Marathon, go ahead and check out this video over here, and I'll see you in there. Awesome. And no, not the only one. I'm gonna get you prepared.